if a man was to take a step back and to reflect on how he generally behaves around others, what he could find is that he rarely shows up. So his physical self will be there and he will create the impression that he is there, but his emotional self or his inner self will disappear. And so he is likely to be primarily in his head and have a very weak connection to his body, and his attention will be on what is going on around him, so tuning into others' needs, doing what he can to please them. And this will mean that he will be out of touch with his true self, so his needs, feelings and preferences, because his true self will be found in his body, not his head. And through experiencing life in this way, he can find that he often feels invisible and as though he doesn't really exist. And this is because in order for him to feel as though he does exist and to be seen and heard, to really be seen and heard, not just his physical self, but his inner world, inner self, to be seen and heard, he will need to show up. Because if his true self doesn't receive the nutrients that it needs from others in order to exist, because of course he, like everyone else, is an interdependent human being. He is not his own island. In order for this to really fill up, his true self to be full of energy and to be alive, it will need to be seen by others. And he could find that this is how he has been for as long as he can remember. And not only can he have the tendency to hide himself in plain sight around friends and colleagues and strangers, he can also be this way around his mother. And this can be seen as something that is strange, because he should have a healthy relationship with her, he should feel comfortable. He will have known her for all his life, so he should be able to be himself around her. But even when he is around her, he could, just like with others, focus on her needs and do what he can to please her. And so he won't be able to truly connect to her. He won't be able to truly connect to anyone. And if he does, this of course is going to be the exception. And what this can come down to is that during his early years, he may have had to fulfill some of his mother's adult and unmet childhood needs. And through having to be there for her, it would have stopped him from receiving what he needed to receive to go through each developmental stage, so to develop a strong sense of self, to be able to express himself without feeling guilty, and to feel comfortable, of course, with his needs and who he is. But whenever he tried to do this, he may have been punished or disapproved of and or abandoned. And through being egocentric, he would have come to believe that his needs were bad and that he was bad as well. His very essence is bad, is inherently flawed. And so during this stage of his life, he would have come to believe that in order for him to survive, he has to hide who he is. And if he reveals himself, he will end up being harmed or being cast aside, and then his life will come to an end. And with this in mind, it is then not going to be a surprise that he has a tendency to hide who he is, because deep within him, he will fear that if he does allow his true self to see the light of day, his life, his time on this planet will be up. And so in order for him to be connected to his body and his true self when he is around others, and to express who he really is, because of course all the time he is playing a role, he is not going to be able to live a life that is worth living, and he will continue to feed into the perhaps miserable existence that he is living. So in order for him to live a great life, he will need to question what he believes. He will need to work through emotional pain and trauma that's likely to be held in his body, because many years will have passed and what took place will be over. But to a big part of him, he will still be in this environment. And so he will still need to hide himself, to hide behind this mask this role that you had to play very early on. And so if you can relate to this and you can see that you are hiding yourself, and because of that you feel very empty and deprived, then it will be essential for you to reach out for the right support. And this can be from a therapist or a healer. And of course, this is a process. It won't take place overnight. But in the same way that an elephant is eaten one mouthful at a time, through taking steps every day, your life will gradually change. So please realise that there's nothing inherently wrong with who you are or your needs. They're not shameful or bad. So please reach out for the assistance that you need to change your life.